Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone doing today? I'm going to be upfront straight away with you. It is boiling in here today. Unbelievably hot, but I still have to shut the window, as you'd hear birds and everything going past the window. So I just want to give you a heads up in advance. It's pretty hot in here. So if you're new here, welcome to the show. This is where the nerds of the music scene come to talk and have opinions and discuss music, essentially. So there's a couple of things I'm going to be getting into today. I've got a topic of the week. I've got some questions. I am going to put it forward as well and say that there's going to be no track reviews this week, and the simple reason for that is we've got a lot of back catalogue of questions to get through and some stuff that I really want to elaborate on, because the stuff that I've been sent over is fantastic discussion. So what we'll do is we'll jump straight in today. As I say, if you're new here, sit back and relax and enjoy. Each week we will be discussing the music scene, music industry, and what else we do is obviously have a guest co-host on. So obviously I'm flying solo this week. Got an interesting guest for next week, so that's all exciting. And yeah, we're all good to go. So what we're going to do is this week we're going to get kick-started with, excuse me, just get my notes up. Here we go. A quick one as well. I'm just going to do a bit of a plug. If you find that you do like this when you listen to this, and it's something that's up your street and you want to get more involved, obviously you can sign up as well and subscribe to our mailing list. I keep forgetting to push this, but basically what you get from here is you get all the sort of show links and everything like that. You'll get exclusive music. You'll hear all of our manic stuff weeks before it comes out, things like that. So yeah, if you want to, I'll leave a link in the description below. And we'll get started. Jesus, it is fucking warm, mate. So, the topic of the week this week is attitude as an artist. So, obviously there's attitude and success, or attitude and the downfall of people. So this is both positive and negative attributes I do want to talk about. Obviously, in a world where talent, opens doors, if you're good, you will get like a footing eventually, wherever you are. But I want to talk about attitude. Does it keep them open? Does it close them? Is there people out there that have spoilt their opportunities by having a certain attitude or a certain approach? Or has people who's maybe had talent, but they're not as talented as others, but have like a great attitude, advanced further because of a brilliant attitude and approach that they have? So that's worth sort of talking about. I believe that things like character compounding and reputation travels faster than ability, because I know for a fact when I have people send me music and they're familiar with a friend of mine or whatever, they'll come and they'll go, their sound, really highly rate them, they're great people. It does push you forward to be inclined to work with people like that. I'm always, when it comes to judge a character, I never believe what anyone says, because I'll let myself decide that. The amount of times in the past where someone's went, oh yeah, they're fucking wankers, I meet them and they're actually sound people, and later down the line the person you're speaking to ends up being the wanker who said it. That's happened a lot. Obviously as well, some people might go, it's absolutely sound, and when just two people don't gel together, I found that in the past as well in the music industry, where no one's actually in the wrong or anything like that. It's just very much that two personalities clash and it just doesn't work out. That has happened to me in the past as well. So yeah, that's good. Obviously things like your attitude, your unofficial biography. So like when you can write what you want online, saying producer, DJ, and then have your music speak. But when you meet these people in person, whether you're a raver, whether you're a promoter, whether you're another artist or a peer, attitude is everything. I think having positive attributes like confidence. If you're confident in your abilities, I think that is very attractive to people within the scene. And I will compare it in a second to various people who were famous. it's definitely magnetic, because you tend to find that people follow conviction. Self-belief is obviously contagious as well. I was talking to Howard earlier today, Howard from Elation, and we were talking and we were saying, like, surrounding yourself with people who have the drive and ambition. If you surround yourself with people who are just there to sort of leech, then it puts you in a negative space as well. For me personally, I like working with people. If I have a bit of a shitty day, I'm not going to say names, but someone was having a bit of a shitty day last week who's in my sort of circle, and I sat them down and we had a conversation. I'm like, listen, it'll get by the situation at hand, and positive, sharing music with them. Look at this is great. It's not all fucking negative. And then again, on the flip side, when I'm having a shitty day, if I'm surrounded by good people, they tend to do the same to me and go, you know what, like, you're just having a bad day, and their energy's magnetic as well, because then it puts you in a good mood. It motivates you to do well. A lot of my peers who I work with, who make banging tunes, when they set a standard, or if I set a standard and they go away and go, right, I need to get better than Brad or whatever, and it's not like it's competitive in a way, but it's not malicious. It's just like, okay, a new standard's being set within the scene. Like, no one makes a low end like so and so, or so and so's mixed down to clean, and everyone aims to be in that sort of space. I think it's really healthy. Negative attitude is not for me. If you come with negativity, and like I say, everyone has the bad days, but there's a difference between having a bad day and having a negative attitude. If you're continuously pessimistic, then you're fucked, because things like that, like, people are not attracted to that to work with. This topic comes up because people have been asking in some of the questions, like, how do I approach certain things? I think your attitude is probably 50% of everything. If you've got the right attitude, people will invest in you, absolutely. Arrogance has got a shelf life, and what I mean is people get bored of having to put up with someone's arrogance or ego. Like I said, I think it'll be in the title of this, difficulty isn't interesting, it just makes your life hard. And the way I think of it, think of someone famous. Think of, say, Liam Gallagher. His swagger, his brand, his attitude obviously amplifies the music of Oasis. If I'm a huge Oasis fan, right? But the fact of the matter is, are they musically the best band ever? No. But his attitude amplifies it to be essentially rock and roll, like, cool as fuck. And that's good. He brings confidence with receipts. Like, your music needs to be good to have that confidence, and you need to have that confidence when you discover your music is good. There's a balance, isn't there? Though, like, obviously your personality needs to be not your main character. Like, you've got to let your music breathe through, because if people just remember your personality and your music's very forgettable, then it's counterproductive in what you're doing. Another person who is a complete polar opposite that I come up with an analogy for was someone like an Ed Sheeran. He's like quietly confident. His quiet competency speaks for itself. Like, he's more competency over controversy. And I'm going to give another example of how somebody can be so loved, and an attitude or a statement, an ego can get above them. It's weird, because the example I'm going to give you is, how can I word this? It is very. I actually agree with them, because more in my own core beliefs than anything else. But famously, I'm going to use John Lennon as an example, and the Beatles. Beatlemania obviously took over America back in the day, and they were huge. They were everywhere. They were around at a time where there wasn't pop stars on that scale, and they surpassed every sort of idealism of what a pop star is. And then in one sentence, they turned a nation against them. I think one of them said Beatlemania is bigger than God. And all of a sudden you had all these crazy Americans who were Christians starting to burn the records off, like something they said where they called it egotistical. Do I agree with the Americans? Absolutely not, because they're bigger than God, because God's not real. But, that's my self-belief. And arguably more people in the world know and physically seen the impacts people like the Beatles made. I'm sort of getting off topic, but it's up to public opinion. Obviously, it goes to show though that you can. What's the word I'm looking for? That you can have an attitude and it's fine, but once you overstep the line, your attitude becomes a problem. In that case, it was a problem because of the religious beliefs and background and things like that. It's maybe not the best analogy, but it's just something I was thinking about. Comedians as well. When you talk about attitude, right? When you go and see a comedian, obviously the delivery is their attitude. The joke isn't the whole sort of act. Somebody could tell a joke and it could come across as not funny, but if someone tells it with delivery, it can enhance how funny it is just with the attitude that you've got. Obviously, memorable. I'm just looking at some of the notes I put here. Distinctiveness obviously sticks. So if you've got your own sort of really distinctive personality and it's infectious, then people want and crave to be around you naturally as human beings. So that's good. People can make mistakes, as in, if you're DJing and you do a bad mix or you put a tune out that's not quite as good as the rest, your fans will forgive that, but they won't forgive being fake. So if you try and fake it and have this really fake persona that's manufactured, people see right through that, and I've seen people not recover from having this fake persona, and once they get outed for it, it's very much game over for them, because they can never be trusted to be their true selves. Social media's got a lot to answer for when it comes to that as well, which is it's just unfortunate, but it's the way the world is at the minute. Obviously, there's dangers to having a strong attitude, and that is obviously your personality is more famous than a forgotten song. Things like making noise, being outspoken, it doesn't create a legacy as such. Obviously, if you're shouting and screaming that you're the best and everyone's like on the attitude train, they'll never remember a legacy that you've left behind. I think you've got to have the substance to go with it as well. But yeah, I think that there's a difference between having an attitude and a personality. People mistake one for the other as well. That's a huge thing, and I feel like because obviously we're talking in this sort of realm right now, that I'm not trying to give anybody advice. I'm just trying to gauge what people have been asking me in the question sections over the last, I'm going to say, 6 or 7 weeks. People are struggling to approach their scene in the right way, whether it's the way they present themselves. They struggle with social media, a lot of the older generation DJs. It could be approaching promoters and meeting people for the first time. I know a lot of people are introverted and they're not keen on sort of putting themselves out there. I know some really, really good DJs who are 20 times better than I am, who won't go and hand a demo in or won't approach a promoter just because they're nervous or whatnot. Have a bit of confidence in your ability if you are good. I'm not saying be overconfident, but just go, I put this together. If you enjoy it, I'm sort of looking for bookings and things like that. That's I think that's the best way to approach it. So that's the sort of topic of the week. What I would like to know from anyone who's listening is, what's your approach when you meet somebody new? Do you feel that when you meet somebody that some people can come across as overconfident within the scene, and it sort of puts you off their music? Or do you find that when you meet a wholesome person who is just genuinely in love with the music, you tend to find you enjoy their music more? So if that's true, give me an example. You don't need to give me an example of people who's got an attitude, but if there's somebody who's just a genuinely nice person, and you meet them and you think, fucking hell, I love the music that little bit more, then let me know who that is, because it's always nice to know that as well. It's nice to show off the good people of the scene you're involved in. So questions. I'm not going to lie, we've got some saucy questions this week. One of them I was hesitant in asking, but we'll get to that when we come to it. I double checked with the person who wrote it in if they wanted to go ahead with this, and they were absolutely certain. So just bear in mind, I'm just repeating the questions that's been asked. I will give my opinion on it. That's as always, I'm not afraid to have an opinion or an observation of someone's thought process or someone's questions. This is what this is here for, and I hope that the person in question, and the people in question in these questions, walk away with the answer they're looking for, or at least a perspective to have against theirs to sort of match it up. If I ask any questions here, I obviously want to know in the comments as well what you guys think of the situation or the question. If you've got an opinion on it, if you don't have an opinion on it, you don't need to write anything, but if you've got an opinion where you think it's maybe different to my perspective, it's maybe different to the person's perspective, I would love to hear it, so let me know. So, question section. First off, again, regular contributor to the show is Brent Flex. He's put, easy brother, hope you're good. I've got a question for Scene Chat. It links to what you and Cal were talking about last week. So obviously Cal co-hosted last week. As somebody who's still fairly new to the promotion beef in the scene, I'd be interested to know your thoughts on navigating bookings when there seem to be loyalties and rivalries between certain brands and events. If you're trying to build relationships across the scene and get your name out there, how do you decide on which bookings to take without unintentionally closing doors with other promoters in the future? Is it better to stay loyal to one brand, or can DJs successfully work across multiple brands whilst remaining respected by everyone involved? This question is so backloaded. Like I said, we've got some really good questions this week. I'm going to give you my opinion, and then I'm going to give you my experience. My opinion is, if somebody says to you, I'm going to give you a residency that's going to get you, will keep you busy all year round, and it's going to be beneficial to you. If you want to take that residency, absolutely go for it. If you and they say, you can go and work for promotions, then absolutely go for that as well. If you approach a residency and they say, we don't want you working for anybody else, you need to make sure that they are giving you a reason for that residency. So if they're giving you X amount of bookings, if they're investing in you to make you a bigger artist, because what you can tend to find is, if you take on a residency and you become, I'm gonna word this in a way, if you become irrelevant to the scene because you're sort of just sitting in the background of someone's promotion, it can affect you negatively. That said, if you are playing for a brand, for instance, and it gets announced that look at me, I'm playing X, and X brands like they're pushing you on the brand, and then you get a message, or you reach out to another promoter looking for work there, and we'll call them Y brand. So, and they say, yep, no worries, we'll put you on. And then the event flyer drops, and there's promoters saying, you're working for this person, but you're working for me at the same time. I'm not keen on that. You need to tread very carefully on what you do. Me personally, I've made these mistakes in the past. We all live and learn from it. It's just unfortunate the way the scene is. I would always, and this is my perspective, and this is my stance on it, I will play for any promotion other than the ones I ethically don't want to. which I won't get into, but that is willing to who wanting to work with me. If you reach out and go, I want to work with you, whatever, I will make sure that I am not clashing with any. Like, me personally, don't take more than one booking a night. I like to do 2 bookings per month, so I think that's evenly spread. I know there's a few rules within the scene, unspoken rules of the 2-week rule. You're not allowed to play for certain brands between 2 weeks, or you don't get booked again. There's a lot of controversial takes on some of these things, but I'm willing to work in my own space, and if that fits a certain brand, then I'll work for them. So I'm going to give you an example. If you get a booking inquiry for X, and they say, we want you on, and it's going to be this weekend, as an example, just for easiness, and you say, yep, that's cool. And then you have another brand who you want to play for, and you reach out to them, and they're doing the same event in the same venue, but the weekend after. I'm not personally not going to be taking that booking. It's just because, it splits the room. Like, you've been booked because you're seen as an asset. Okay, who's a Brad Refresh or a Manic fan? Okay, well, we can only see them see Brad or Manic in that venue once that month. We're only going to go to one of them. So that's the way I'd work personally. If it's, if you're in Wigan, right, for this Saturday, but then you get a booking in Preston the Saturday after, that's cool. I try to just do 2 a month personally, but that's the way I work, because it won't be the same crowd that's come to see you. You're not splitting any crowds, and it keeps the scene healthy as well, I believe. I don't want people to be bored of me as well. Imagine if you were booked for 4 week on the belt or 3 week on the belt, playing the same venue for different promotions. People will be like, I don't want to see Brad anymore. I'm fucking sick of him. Like, and it goes for any DJ as well. It's like, that's just my approach. So I'm going to try and answer these questions the best I can here, Brent. So, is it better to stay loyal to one brand? In my experience, no, it's not. I have had an extremely dry patch when it comes to bookings, because I was loyal to one brand, and it took me a long time to sort of build up my bookings again. I've got 4 or 5 things booked in for the rest of the summer, which I'm really happy about. But for context, I only played Pier on the Pier last year, and I played in Birmingham as well. They were my only 2 bookings for the whole of last year, and that's coming off the back of a residency, which again, you learn from your mistakes, don't you? That's the be all and end all of it. I think there is a divide, and this is one thing you need to be careful of, Brent. And I'm giving you the advice, and I'm giving anyone else who's fairly new to the scene advice. Just because some of the bigger names get to play each event, right, doesn't mean that you can. It's unfortunate in the way it is, because you will play for one, and then you will have another. So you can play for X 1 week, Y will never touch you again. They won't let on. They won't say, "Oh no, there's a problem" or anything like that. But they just won't touch you again, and that door's closed. And if you see them, they'll be sound with you. In my experience, I've experienced that. So just be mindful and considering, if you're playing for one event that's in a venue that is close to another one than you booked for, I just think it's you're dancing on thin ice, because people don't like it. Am I bothered? Not really. Like if I got 2 bookings for what would pop up? Sort of for Pure as an example. If I got booked twice in the month for Pure, I would turn one of them down and just say, right, thanks for the offer, and I hope the door's still open, but I've took this booking and I don't want to have it clash, because it will affect you as a promoter as well as the other promoter, because it'll be splitting the difference from my following. And that's just a way to look at it. And will they come back? They'll probably respect the idea and come back. Whereas if you play for both, you're probably going to piss both off at some point. Again, anyone else who's got an opinion on this, obviously, just let me know, and put it in the comments, because there's so many unspoken rules within the scene. And if you speak to promoters, they'll go, oh, no, there isn't. But then, if there isn't, why do you all of a sudden stop booking somebody when they take another booking? You know, it's unspoken, but it's just the bare truth of it. If you want, this is. I've just had an epiphany, right? If you want a bit of advice on who to follow in the style of the way you accept your bookings, right? Look at Pete Monsoon. Pete is loved and adored by most promoters that I know, and he plays all over this place all year round. He seems to do well for himself in that regard. I think that's a really good guy. If you want an idol or someone to do a bit of a case study on, look at Pete. Pete's a busy guy who he plays for everyone at some point in the year. It seems pretty well spread out as well. So I think Pete's a good example of that. He's a busy DJ and rightfully so as well. And when it comes to attitude, from the previous question, he's got a fucking great attitude about it as well. I love him. Love you, Pete. So we have another question. This was written a couple of weeks ago, and we haven't had a chance to get to it yet, but it's where have all the venues gone? Where do you see the club scene in the next 5 years? And that's from Anonymous. So I'm going to keep this one short and sweet, because I'm sure pretty much everybody's sick of talking about it at this point. And that is that I think club culture, and I know I'm not the first to say this, but I think club culture, like going out to your local nightclub on a Saturday, is gone. I think the pub game's still strong and only just surviving. I think the World Cup's helping it massively. But nightclub culture weekly it seems to be on its way out. I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years if it's completely gone. The event space. So, hiring a venue, hiring warehouses, hiring, event centres, hiring and festivals, things like that. All of these things are probably the way that the rave scene is going to look for the next few years. I think the days of weekly nightclubbing is slowly disappearing. Although, I will say, for dedicated bounce nightclubs nowadays, I think it's only Underground that I can think of, and Pure. Pure... It's not open every week though, so again, that's something to think about there. Underground is open every week. I'm sure they've got an event on every week. Quite admirable. It's not a huge place to fill, but it gets its weekly clientele in. That's probably the last of a dying breed of style of clubs. So yeah, that's my thought on that. In 5 years' time. And again, I'm no economist or anything like that, but you will see in politics it's not looking great at the minute. I think the economy is going to have a lot to pay for over the next few years, and unfortunately, entertainment's the first thing that sort of gets hit first. And I do think that it's more than likely going to be nightclubs that go, like your weekly nightclubs will disappear. Not just a dedicated bounce nightclub, but the ones in your local town that's only just getting by now. The cost of running them is so expensive before the doors even open, for your bar staff, for your security, for your stock and things like that. It's a lot of money. So I think that it will be the little small venues that survive, if they do. But yeah, the way I see the future of this is your big events will be your festivals that you go to, whether that's bounce or whether that's your commercial stuff, and what you would call your nightclubbing will be event spaces. In 5 years' time, it will be everyone trying to do something different and unique. It'll be the warehouses, the hireable spaces and things like that. There was a phase a few years ago where I seen a lot of like civic centres, town centre, civic halls getting hired out. I played a couple of them as well, so you might go to that. I will put this out there. There's a lot of venues at the moment that are really struggling, and tell me if you've seen this, or if you're involved in the industry at all as a promoter or whatever, if you've seen this as well. the cost of venue hire and things like that is astronomical, because they're desperate right now to be able to stay afloat, that they're putting it onto the promoters who are hiring the venues out. I've seen it 3 times in the last 3 months where I've spoken to somebody and they've went, it's cost X amount, and I'm just like, wow, how can you justify that cost? They're just passing their overheads onto promoters, unfortunately, which is, it's sad to see. It really is. Next up, right, like I say, this question came from said person before I read it. He has said that he's okay and cool with this, so I just want to put that out there as a preface. So this is from Gary Selects. If you know him, he's from Meltdown. He runs Meltdown, and that's been around a while, which we'll get into in a second. So this is a question from Gary Selects. I've been seeing all these polls recently, and honestly, I don't know what it is, but it feels like people need a bit of a history lesson. Do people not realise that me and Farrell started out together in 98, 99? Meltdown was already going before that. A lot of DJs who now seem to appear on every poll hadn't even started at that point, yet my name never seems to be getting mentioned. Someone once asked me, how have you managed to keep your name in the scene all these years but never end up on big stages? And probably for the first time ever I was speechless. I genuinely couldn't answer. So I'd like just to throw it out there. Why is Gary Selects so underrated? Why do I never seem to appear in these polls or get mentioned when people talk about legends of the scene? After all these years, I genuinely like to know. If this starts a bit of a discussion, so be it. I'm interested to hear what people think, and that's from Gary Selects. So, first and foremost, Gary Selects is obviously Meltdown promoter and DJ'd various places over the years. Like I say, he's saying back in 98, 99, so quite a long career there. My first take on this, I'm going to be transparent and always open and honest with everything I say. I would like to know people's opinion on this as well, if you know Gary. Maybe it's the way you preserve your legacy, preserve your history, preserve everything really. And I'm gonna give you a couple of points here of what I mean by that. When I was growing up, in the same era that you were around, I was listening to cricketer recordings, Maxime's recordings, peer recordings, Pleasure Rooms, 051. And the DJs that I would hear were, from the crick, it would be John G, Desire, etc. From Maxime's, you've got your Maxime's DJs. Obviously, there was a good few there. Then you had your Pleasure Rooms. You had your 051s, etc. And there's all these other clubs as well that was in and around your Monroes, etc., etc. And from my history of you, Gary, I do believe that you were around and playing these events, but some people tend to preserve their history and their name better. So whether it's making your set recordings available at a certain time period, in the mid 2000s there were CDs floating around everywhere of all sorts of different venues. In my personal opinion, Gary, I never heard any of your CDs until latter end of, I'm going to say, the 2010s, if I'm entirely honest. That's just me personally. So it could be the way that it's been preserved. I haven't actually went on YouTube and everything and had a look at the CDs and recordings or anything like that. So maybe that's one aspect of it. So it's how you preserve your history. Are all your old classic sets available online? A lot of event promoters and things like that do tend to preserve their branding quite well. So when you think of Sank at the Cricketer, all the things are all online there, and you can go and listen to them. And at the time, they were everywhere. Them CD recordings. Same with Maxime's as well. If you went to Maxime's and had a brilliant night, obviously word of mouth spreads, but the CD packs were spreading. Same goes for the peer volumes as well. I'll put it to you this way. and this is just me thinking off the top of my head, if Ben T wasn't doing the P volumes, right, he would have still been a resident in Pia, right? So bear that in mind. Do you think his name would be as big as it is now? I think I'd confidently say no. And the reason for that is I heard of Ben T from someone giving me a Pia CD. And then that's when you go down the rabbit hole of like, okay, what else has he done? And what's he done? And what's he done? That's how it is. Just word of mouth and CDs around in the 2000s. As times went by, social medias came in. Let's say, sort of early 2010s or late 2000s. Social medias came in. People have started to build their brand off the back of it. So if we're talking 2000s, obviously you've got things like I use Lee Butler as an example as well. Lee Butler was on the radio. He was getting that exposure. Everyone, every couple of minutes on Lee's show, you would hear Lee Butler and things like that. And it stuck in your mind, and everyone remembers who Lee is. And I'm just giving you that as an example. I remember a famous story that Farrell told me about Sanctuary. He said when they first started recording the Sank volumes that they knew it was going to be going out, and he wasn't building his FEZ brand up, he was building the Sanctuary name up, and he was saying to the MCs that were on, make sure you say Sanctuary, make sure you say Sanctuary, we're at the Sanctuary, and it's a good business, it's a good marketing tactic, because if I got that tape and I listened to it, like, oh, this is banging, like, okay, might be John G in Desire, and it might have Avi, and it might have Wizard on, right? But it's a recording. Okay, so I'll go down the rabbit hole and look for John G or Desire, whoever it is. But if he's constantly saying, we're at Sanctuary, we're at Sanctuary, we're at Sanctuary, then I'll be looking for more Sanctuary things. If I like the sound of this CD, I'm going to go look for more. So it's just, it's the way you market yourself in that era. As times have went by, obviously, the social media aspect of it has come in, and it's coming to a part where you have to be loud to be able to be known. There is a few exceptions to the rule who just sort of plodded along, and they seem to have done it based off the reputation that they made years before, with the CDs, with the word of mouth and things like that. When it comes to yourself as an artist, what did you push more? This is a question I'm putting to you directly, Gary. And what did you push more? Did you push DJ Gary Selects, or did you push Meltdown? Like, me personally, my Brad Refresh name, I would say, is a little bit lower than what the Manic thing is, because I'm constantly pushing the Manic thing, Manic music. And if you're constantly pushing one, you can't put the same energy into both. And that's just the simple way of saying it. If you want to know, why you're not mentioned in these polls, there was 101 other DJs who weren't mentioned in these polls as well. And why is that? I don't have the poll handy to look at, but you have your obvious names. I think obviously Rob Kane won it. Then you have your John Neals, your Bon Lees, your Greenies, your John G's, etc., etc. All of these people I discovered back in the day. I discovered Bon Lee through obviously Bad Behaviour, and then as you do some digging, you're like, oh, he played at the Crick as well for Sank, etc. I believe he even played Meltdown as well, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, that's I'm not even, and this is a good thing. This is exactly what I'm saying to you. I think he played Meltdown. I can't confirm that. Whereas I'm certain he played Sank because I've heard the CDs. And that's just the way I'm looking at it in this regard. And then you've got people who build up, the social media presence by, whether it's mixes, monthly mixes. I do a monthly mix, which I'm going to plug at the end. I do, and I try and put myself out there as a DJ, whereas I'm not seeing Gary Selects mixes online. I'm friends with you on the social medias and things like that, and I'll see a Meltdown poster every now and again on my news feed, but I'm not seeing Gary Selects being pushed as an asset, as your own brand. Maybe that's what it is, and maybe it's just getting savvy with the social media side of things, because if you think that you are genuinely underrated, look at it like this. If you think, you know what, I've got skills and this is what I can do, and you're not getting booked at places, and you just find yourself putting your own nights on, then look at it like this. How can I get in people's faces? That's the way I do it. How can I be a shop window? Even the people on the top of the scene, right, even reinvent themselves. So a little bit of context. Obviously, Rob Kane had won the GOAT poll thing that DVB had done. Right, Rob's known for his style. He's known for Total Control. He's known for the Scouse House era things, but then all of a sudden he started this mix series that he does. He's been putting them out one a month, and it's like an old school mix series, and people have been getting behind that, and it keeps him current. It keeps him in the shop window of people, even though it's like an old school mix. It's like, oh well, I've put that on. I'm going to go listen to an old Rob Kane set that I'm nostalgic with, and that's how he's sort of keeping himself current. Same goes for your Joe Taylors, who I think he came second. I can't remember what it was. Joe is obviously he's in the production game now, but he's producing a lot. But with his CDs, he's bouncing volumes, his live sets that he posts online. All of this is keeping him current in the year of 2026, and that's how he's maintaining his bookings. Same goes for I'll do you a good comparison. And he's one of my good friends, and I know he won't mind me talking about this. But look at Bon Lee as an example. Bon isn't as active as he once was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And his bookings reflect that. He's still getting booked, but nowhere near as much as when he was releasing, for instance, On My Own, which was out on Manic Music. That's not a plug, but when he was doing that tune, and he did a few other tunes as well. And the bookings were a lot more in numbers than they are now, because he's not as active as he once was, and that just goes to show as soon as you do stop being active and in the shop window to people, not that you get forgot about, but then you're riding on the legacy that you built, whether that's good or bad, and eventually the wheels will fall off. I can put good money on with you, Gary, that when you stopped do Meltdown for whatever reason. I don't know if you've ever stopped for a period of time, but you will see that people will remember you for the Meltdown nights as the past, not as the current. And then when you started them back up, people, that's the guy who does Meltdown at Underground, as an example. And that's how you get in the shop window. So you just need to be sort of more present online, personally, and that's the way I think you need to get, because you're putting the events on, and you're plugging it away, and you're pushing the brand, but you need to be if you want people to remember your legacy, you need to give them reason to do so. That's just what that's my understanding of that. If anyone disagrees with that, obviously again let me know, but it's a cold hard truth of, if you're not pushing yourself and putting yourself in the shop window, people won't remember you. Because there's the famous story of Inspiral Carpets as an example. They were doing music at the same time as Oasis, right? No, was it Inspiral Carpets? I can't remember the name of the band now. Oh, forget that. But there was a band that was around at the same time from Liverpool as Oasis, and they were doing bits and bobs, and they didn't put out anything out for a while, and they sort of like just fell off a little bit because they weren't in the shop window. Whereas bands like Oasis pushed through. I think from when they did definitely maybe to Morning Glory, it's like 18 months, or maybe even less than that. And they were in that. You've just got to ride the momentum. Personally, that's the way I see it. It's the same goes, and I'm going to use an analogy that other people might understand with wrestling. You see a wrestler who goes out injured, and there's a football player who goes out injured, and people remember them in the past of when they come back they're going to be great, because you anticipate it. And if you are active and present and you're given no reason for people to remember you, they're going to forget you anyways. So you've got to be constant. A good one would be right now would be Cristiano Ronaldo, right? I'm not a big football guy, but it's a good analogy to use. Do you think Cristiano Ronaldo would have got into that Portugal squad at his age with his current form without the reputation of his past? He's somebody who's literally riding on nostalgia at the minute, I think. He's still a fantastic player, by the way, still one of the best ever. But it feels like he's riding on a legacy a little bit, because he's nowhere near the best player on that pitch when he's playing. From what I've seen in the World Cup this time round, I know it's maybe a bit of an odd analogy, but you know, people will ride it until the wheels fall off. You see a load of fucking, I'm gonna say this in a positive way, but a load of dead weight in the scene where they're just riding off something that they did 20 years ago and somehow still get booked. That will eventually fall off, because guess what? There's a whole new wave of ravers who have no fucking clue who they are, because they haven't done anything in 15 to 20 years. And then them oldies, and it's the same in comedy as well. Them oldies all of a sudden are like, you know, what are these new kids doing that I'm not? It's all in the social media game. No, it's all about being present in the fucking here and now, and not living off a rhyme or living off a tune that you did 20 years ago. Carry on being a creative. It's a creative space, music. If you're not being creative, and yeah, you can argue that bands like things like the Rolling Stones and things like that, their best stuff was in the past, but they're still staying active and they're still given reason to go on tour. Because guess what? You can, even as a DJ myself, I will turn up and I'll play new stuff, and I'll play the stuff that people have booked me because, oh, that's a Brad tune, or that's a Manic tune, I want to hear that, and that's what I'm going for. And that's how you keep your legacy going. Your legacy is, and I'm going to use DVB as an example as well. DVB, who actually created this poll, people go and see them knowing that they're going to hear new music, but they're also wanting to hear things like Get Up and Dance. They're wanting to hear No Reason. They're wanting to hear, you know, in that regard. Same Fitzy and Ross. Fitzy and Ross, I'd argue that their newer stuff isn't as good as the stuff they were doing a few years ago. That's my personal opinion. If I went, I'd still be buzzing to hear new stuff from them because it's exciting. But at the same time, I want that little fix of, I want to hear one of their older tunes as well, because it's just, they've got legacy. And legacy is something that you need to build, and it doesn't take, you know, you can't do that in 6 months. It might take fucking 20 years. And when you talk about legacy, are you present? If someone goes back, if I go back and go, right, we're in 2020, we're in lockdown as an example. What were you doing to keep alive in lockdown? As in, you know, as a DJ, me myself, I was doing live streams. I was putting myself out there, producing more music than I've ever done. I'd like to think that when people think back to lockdown, oh, what was Brad doing in lockdown? Oh, yeah, he was doing all this stuff. What was Brad doing in I don't know, 2015? And then, oh, I seen him at this gig and seen him at that, and he produced this tune, you know. And that's the way that the legacy's built. I think that if you are not on people's radar for an amount of time, then they're not going to remember you, and they're not going to remember what you do. It's a harsh truth, and it's just a harsh reality of life. You need to be in the shop window all the time. I hope that's give you some sort of insight, and I hope it's give some others insight of the way I think about these things. And if anyone disagrees, then obviously just let me know as well, because I think this is a conversation that is interesting, because it's not just applicable to Gary. There's 101 other DJs who could have been on that list who weren't. Obviously, Gary's, in my opinion, quite upset that he wasn't, and it's the reality of being that shop window all the time. If you want to be remembered, and if you want to be in these lists, you need to be somebody who can prove that there is a legacy there with a timeline. People like to look. If I discover a band, right, and this is a good example. If I discover a band, I remember when I first discovered Paramore, I was a bit late to the party. Right, okay, let's check out what they've done. Oh, let's go and check back out their old albums, and then you go dig into stuff that they've done before. If there's a timeline there, your legacy's there, and that's all I'm trying to say is, if you can preserve what you've done. That's why people write biographies. That's why people, that's all, is it autobiography or biography? I can't remember. That's why you have a biography, because people remember what you've done. I have got a couple of things I would like to talk about as well. Speaking of Gary, Gary has got an event on this weekend at Underground, as we talked about earlier before. Give me 2 seconds. I have the lineup here, so it should be on the screen right now. So Saturday the 27th of June, it's Meltdown at Underground. It's special guests, Club Bangers. I'm not sure who they are personally, as headliners, and Joshy D. Joshy D is the guy who's doing the podcasts at the minute, who's associated with Corruption, supported by Gary Selects, Paul P, Outlaw, Naylor, Malin, and Dimot. I don't know if how to pronounce that, sorry. And it's the World Cup after party. So if you were around in the Farnworth area, then get yourself down there. Gary's has put Meltdown nights on since 98, 99, like he said. I'm sure he will be able to provide you with a good night if he's got that much experience in what he's doing. So yeah, get yourself down there. Secondly, I would like to plug, I got a message from Lee from Bouncing, and he mentioned that this weekend is Bouncing's Summer Jam, and it's at Hidden Courtyard and Fusion Burnley, and it is quite a stacked lineup, a few minutes on there as well. So we've got headlining, we've got Hannah Taylor, Fitzy and Ross, and MJ, big one. John Neal, Joe Taylor, Alan Ben, Heads Up, Carl Hill, DVB Productions, LP, Keefe, Strobe, Lee T, Shiv, Jose, I'm going to pronounce it like the Spanish would, but Jose or Jose, and Craig Smart, and then you've got Roy, and then you've got 88 to 91 and Stu C. And the MCs for the evening, we have FEZ, Roach, Lukey P, Jonesy, Master C, Makey, and Wince. And then you've got the Rush Room with Mikey Biker, Spud, Utters, D&E, Benny Hill, wow, D&D, DGN, Decoy, Double D, and then you've got the MCs for the evening in the Rush Room, LDMC, Robo J, Apo, Hype, Erase, Gaz, Storms, Lil K, and Ryder. I'll be honest with you, it's a pretty stacked lineup there. It's good to see Fusion Burnley open again as well, because like I say, we do see these nightclubs dropping like crazy. So it's good to see that open back up again. If you're local to Burnley, get yourself there. I'm sure you will be entertained. So there's some real talent on that lineup. And if I'm not mistaken, like I said, it's pretty hot in here. I'm sure for the weekend it's because it's going to be outdoors as well. It's set to be a huge heat wave, so it will be very enjoyable. So yeah, get yourself down there. Before I finish up today, what I would like to do is to go over a couple of things. This week, Friday, we have Manic Sessions. It's a mix from myself, and we play all new tunes. We have a section of just brand new music that I think you'll love. We have the artist spotlight. We have the throwback of the month. Sorry. We have the wind it back track where we dig into the Manic catalogue and see what tune we can bring back to life. And then we have what else? And that's it. And that's for that. It's out this Friday, so I'm gonna probably record it tomorrow, and yeah, be dropping on Friday. I'd appreciate that if you go and check that out, because I'm all for pushing new music. People are complaining that all they hear is classic mixes. I'm going to give you an hour of new music, as well as obviously the features that I explained to you just then. If you would like a shout out on it, because it is a radio style format, just drop a comment, just say shout, and whoever it is in the comments below, and I'll make sure you get a shout out on the show as well. That'll be on my SoundCloud. Quick plug as well, I do have some music that's not on my SoundCloud, unfortunately. Every time I upload, and this is both original and remixes, have had a lot of trouble, and I've had email back and forth with SoundCloud. they don't accept anything for whatever reason less than 5 minutes on my SoundCloud account anymore. So if there's something that's less than 5 minutes, regardless if it's copyrighted or not, it just pulls it down after a couple of minutes, which is really annoying. So my mixes are still on my SoundCloud, but if you want to hear any of the Manic tunes or any Brad Refresh tunes, you're probably going to best get them on YouTube. So that's basically everything from me this week. What I do want to say is we'll be returning next week with the track reviews. We will have a special guest co-host on next week. If you've got questions, if you've got topics you'd like us to discuss, then obviously write in and we'll discuss them. I hope you've enjoyed the last hour or so. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting shit to you. I thoroughly enjoyed doing these because I love talking about music. I love having a co-host on so we can back and forth about it as well and hear different perspectives. But like I say, I would love to hear your perspectives, and I will see you on Friday when we drop the radio show, the Manic Sessions. Have a good one, and I'll see you later.